From MTN News, this is Montana This Morning.
President Donald Trump and the Department of Government Efficiency continued their efforts to shrink the federal workforce. And Yellowstone National Park's 153rd birthday on Saturday celebrated a bit differently than usual, with protests and billionaire Elon Musk on a mission to reshape the federal government has quickly become one of the most powerful people in Washington. We'll take a closer look at the law authorizing his position right now in D.C. in just a few minutes. Good morning and welcome to Montana This Morning on this Monday, March 3rd. I'm Augusta McDonnell here with Miller Robson.
Hey, good morning, Augusta. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome to March. Beautiful weekend. But it's not necessarily going to stick around.
No, next couple of days, we're going to start to see a cool down. We'll see some mountain snow, some rain in the lower elevations tonight, and then overnight rain transitions to snow, and then all snow as we wake up tomorrow. But like Augusta said, it was a beautiful weekend. Our high yesterday of 61 above average, our low of 32 above average as well. Did have a top gust yesterday of 20 miles an hour. Along with the snow, we could see some gusty winds tomorrow in spots, so visibility could be an issue tomorrow morning during your morning commute. But you could see reported high temperatures yesterday, 50s and 60s for the most part in our area. Just a beautiful day. Moisture totals, we're starting off on a dry note so far, but we do have some moisture heading our way with the rain and snow. For the year, we're still pacing ahead. Snow totals for the month, we're in the hole, but for the season, we're in pretty good shape. And remember, we got some more snow heading our way. A couple of inches possible here in Billings. 36 right now at the airport, feels like 30. Humidity at 73%, dew point temperatures at 28 degrees. Winds out of the west at about 7 miles an hour. Across the area this morning, we've got 30s and even some 20s. A lot of cloud cover out there, but we get ready for that. Winter weather advisory in effect for portions of our area. What exactly does that mean? I will let you know coming up.
All right, much to come, Miller. Thanks for tracking all of that. And now let's head overseas for our top story. Leaders of European countries rallied around Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky after his contentious visit to the U.S. last week. They say they have to do the heavy lifting to bring about an end to the 3-year-long war between Russia and Ukraine, but maintain there must be strong backing from the U.S. CBS's Derek Waller reports from New York.
More fallout after Friday's Oval Office clash between President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right?
The blow-up left a deal to give the U.S. partial access to Ukraine's minerals unsigned. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says it's off the table for now.
It is impossible to have an economic deal without a peace deal.
Across the Atlantic in London, more than a dozen leaders from Europe and Canada met with Zelensky for an emergency summit. Afterwards, United Kingdom Prime Minister Keir Starmer said the group is working on a Russia-Ukraine peace deal to present to President Trump. In the meantime, Starmer said the group will bolster military aid to Ukraine and look at building a coalition of peacekeeping troops from Europe.
Europe must do the heavy lifting, but to support peace in our continent and to succeed, this effort must have strong U.S. backing.
While in London, Zelensky told reporters he believes he can salvage his relationship with President Trump. In Moscow Sunday, Russia's top diplomat praised the president's handling of his meeting with Zelensky. The president later posted on social media, "We should spend less time thinking about Putin and more time worrying about migrants." Meanwhile, multiple U.S. officials tell CBS News Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has directed U.S. Cyber Command to pause planning against Russia, including offensive digital actions. The duration and reason for the pause are unclear as the president pushes for a peace deal. Derek Waller, CBS News.
Tomorrow night, President Trump will lay out his agenda in a speech before a joint session of Congress. This comes as the president's tariffs of 25% are set to kick in on imports from Canada and Mexico, with an extra 10% on goods from China. And Trump and the Department of Government Efficiency continue their efforts to shrink the federal workforce. The latest round of cuts impacting the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, with hundreds of weather and climate professionals losing their jobs in the last week. In all, the agency looks to lose at least 7% of its workforce, a decision that could have a huge effect on agriculture, wildland firefighting efforts, and everyday Americans, especially when it comes to severe storms. The National Weather Service has already suspended balloon launches in Alaska due to a lack of staffing. Meteorologist Keith Meyer, who spent 30 years at the National Weather Service here in Montana, worries that these cuts could have a lasting impact on the state.
That's the primary mission of the Weather Service, is the protection of lives and property and to enhance the national economy. So there's no question about what you come in and do every day and what you focus on every day. I'm really worried about, especially in Montana, we would dispatch a meteorologist to support wildfire fighting efforts across the state, and we would have to backfill those positions in our office.
Nationwide, offices were already running 15 to 20% understaffed. Back here in our part of the world, Yellowstone National Park's 153rd birthday on Saturday was celebrated a bit differently than usual. Many traveled to Gardner outside the north entrance to protest the National Park Service firings recently laid out by President Trump and Elon Musk in an effort to downsize the federal workforce. Our Isabel Spartz has more.
Hundreds of people gathered here at America's oldest national park to protest the firings of probationary National Park Service employees. And they're just one group of many across Montana and the country making their voices heard.
Yellowstone is not for sale!
Yellowstone National Park's 153rd birthday on Saturday was celebrated a bit differently than in years prior. Many traveled to Gardner outside of the north entrance of the park to protest the National Park Service firings recently laid out by President Donald Trump and Elon Musk in an effort to downsize the federal workforce.
Our national parks are one of the great gifts of America, and they're under threat right now with the current Republican administration's funding cuts.
Fire, not fire!
At this time, it is uncertain what the total scope of effects could look like, but those in the surrounding area of the park are worried about its future.
This is not about saving money, it is about what we spend our money on. And I, as a citizen of America, would like to spend our tax dollars on the things that make America great. And in my mind, that is our national parks.
There were 3,400 Forest Service employees laid off. There are 3.2 million acres of Forest Service lands in the Custer-Gallatin district alone, and of them, only 5 people remain.
With those cuts, the Park Service will hire more seasonal employees instead.
Seasonal positions cannot replace permanent positions and the wealth of knowledge and experience and expertise those people have.
The display scene was just one of many in parks across the country on March 1st. But smaller communities are also speaking out in Montana.
Public lands not for sale!
On Friday, nearly 70 Red Lodge residents stood in Pride Park to voice the same concerns, saying the firings could also negatively impact tourism.
Of course, I'm concerned about people across the world, but it's in our town that it's going to affect us.
Just seeing restaurants hurt, businesses hurt, seeing less tourism here.
Kylie has been a public land servant for 6 years and is concerned for her colleagues that lost their jobs, 9 in Red Lodge and 32 in the Custer-Gallatin area, including Jillian Green, who lost hers on February 14th.
Most of us rely on federal housing as well, so come April I was planning to move into federal housing for 6 months, so now I have to figure out where I'm going to live in the next month.
Green and Kylie worry for public safety, saying that planned upkeep of trails will not be done, and EMT help in putting out potential forest fires will be greatly slowed or even impossible.
Think about all these fires that are just prevented just from us being out there, that aren't going to be prevented this year.
This week's protests could be just the beginning for public pushback against federal cuts.
And that's what makes our country great, is our public lands,
This land was made for you and me.
In Gardner, Isabel Spartz, NTN News.
Great story, Isabel. Thanks so much. And at the legislature, the body is looking at legislation that would make changes to how people transfer vehicle ownership in the state. House Bill 165 would remove the requirement for a notary when transferring a vehicle title. The bill's sponsor, Republican Representative Ken Walsh, says the goal is to make the title transfer process easier on people, specifically those in Montana's many rural communities. Meanwhile, opponents argue the bill could pose some issues with fraud, especially for the elderly. There are 45 states in the nation that currently do not require notaries. HB 165 passed the House and is now waiting on action from the Senate. And billionaire Elon Musk, on a mission to reshape the federal government, has quickly become one of the most powerful people in Washington. But truth be told, there may be limits to what the Constitution says he can do. Scripps News investigative correspondent Patrick Terpstra reports from Washington.
Elon, go ahead.
Sure. Billionaire Elon Musk has become one of, if not the most influential figures in Trump world.
He's a very talented guy from the standpoint of management and costs, and we put him in charge of seeing what he can do with certain groups and certain numbers.
Musk is the main driver of the new Department of Government Efficiency, aka DOGE, the group swinging a sledgehammer at the government, firing thousands of federal workers, attempting to shut down entire agencies, and canceling billions of dollars worth of federal contracts, all without approval from Congress. In a court filing, the Trump administration calls Musk a non-career special government employee, a classification allowed under federal law for hirees to work up to 130 days. Musk is also referred to as a senior advisor to the president.
Elon can't do and won't do anything without our approval, and we'll give him the approval where appropriate. Where not appropriate, we won't.
But a lawsuit challenging Musk says he exercises an extraordinary amount of power unprecedented in U.S. history in violation of the Constitution. The Appointments Clause requires the U.S. Senate to approve officers of the government, explains Daniel Farber, constitutional law professor at UC Berkeley.
He is, in fact, much more powerful than many people who have been appointed and confirmed by the Senate. And if that kind of position doesn't require Senate confirmation, then it seems to me that whole process becomes a little bit of a joke.
Whether Musk can wield so much power may soon be a question for the U.S. Supreme Court. Patrick Terpstra, Scripps News Group, Washington.
March is both National Agriculture and Women's History Month. So here at MTN, we're looking to highlight the many women making a difference in the field. And what a better place to start than with 17-year-old Claire Mernon, who over the past 2 years has combined the age-old traditions of ranching with the new age of social media. It's all an attempt, she says, to educate and inform. And so far, the plan, she says, working to perfection. As MTN's Charlie Klebs found out, her mother couldn't be more proud.
Important to everybody's life, whether they know it or they don't.
The lifestyle can be unforgiving.
It's very muddy outside.
But regardless of challenges, agriculture's importance can't be overstated.
Without agriculture, we would not be able to survive.
Every decision and every choice we make, it has life and death consequences.
Known as the backbone of every country, its roots run deep in Montana.
We typically start our day by doing chores somewhere between 6:30 to 7 o'clock.
And that's especially true at the Mernon family ranch near Pompey's Pillar.
You know, those of us that do it, we don't take it lightly. It's a way of life.
A way of life that has survived generations and will always flourish. But now, in 2025, it's becoming more modernized. Thanks to Claire Mernon and her social media talents.
Why don't I post daily about agriculture and the lifestyle that so many of us live?
The Shepherd seniors started this Instagram page called 365 Days of Agriculture, doing just that.
At first it was a little nerve-wracking to think that she was going to put herself out there, and what would she say?
The early fears and anxiety felt by Claire's mother Julie and herself quickly evaporated as the followers and interactions skyrocketed.
I definitely would have never expected that it would have grown to where it is today and how it keeps growing.
It's not just her telling her friends at school what she did over the weekend. You know, she's reaching a really big audience with it.
A message both Claire and her mom know is important. Advocating and educating people about the world's oldest trade.
I've realized that I do have an influence on people, and I am able to share my stories and the stories of others around me.
It's critical to bring agriculture to a lot of different people, and the fact that she's a girl too, that's, you know, pretty awesome and makes me proud as a mom.
Again, that was MTN's Charlie Klebs. And now in some climate news on your Monday, President Trump held his first cabinet meeting where he said that EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin is going to slash the agency's workforce by 65%. When CBS News reached out after the meeting, the White House clarified that it's a 65% budget cut that's expected. Either way, it's a major reduction in resources for the agency that's tasked with ensuring Americans have access to clean air, land, and water. This comes as Congress is expected to roll back 2 rules passed in the final months of the Biden administration that limit the amount of methane emissions from the oil and gas industry and set efficiency standards for tankless water heaters. And a trial is underway in the $300 million lawsuit by a Texas pipeline company against environmental group Greenpeace. The company accuses Greenpeace of orchestrating the 2016 and 17 Standing Rock protests against the Dakota Access Pipeline. Greenpeace says the protests were organized and led by indigenous communities and that the lawsuit is meritless and aimed at silencing critics of the oil industry. Meanwhile, Trump says in a social media post that he wants the Keystone XL pipeline project to be built. This despite the company behind the controversial project saying it had already moved on. Trump added to his post, if not them, perhaps another pipeline company. And a new study finds extreme heat can make bodies age faster. Researchers found older adults' exposure to extreme heat may accelerate biological aging, the measure of how well the body functions over time. The study found that participants living in extremely hot areas like Phoenix, Arizona, experienced up to 14 months of additional biological aging per year than those who live in cooler climates.